So I wanted to talk a little bit about the use of Mylar specifically for the reduction screen printing process. The Mylar is very important for registration, particularly with reduction, because you want each of your colors to overlay precisely on top of the previous color. The way that it works is that first you lay down your base color and you block out everywhere that you don't want any of that color to be. So basically wherever you want the paper color to show up, and that creates your first stencil. And then for each subsequent color, you continue blocking out the areas that you want to remain that previous color that you printed. And so each one gets built up exactly overlaid on top of the previous color. So having a proper registration system is really handy. And I like the Mylar method, which is just this clear piece of plastic that lays over the paper, and you can see exactly where the next color is going to overlay onto the previous color because the screen is locked into these hinge clamps, and I know exactly where it's going to fall. So it's very precise and takes the guesswork out of it. You don't have to worry about placing your screen because the print is going to be on the plastic Mylar. So I'll just demonstrate that and show you the method that I use for getting proper registration. So first I'm going to spread out my final color that I've pre-mixed, and with the reduction I like to go from the lightest color, the palest color, to the darkest, because you're building up those layers of ink, and so it's a good idea to have your initial color that's going to be underneath all of the ink printings to be a light tone. That way the darker they get, the more they build up on top of them. And I'm using water-based ink. I'm printing on paper. And the nice thing about the screen filler is it's designed for water-based ink and solvent-based ink. So it's a waterproof, solvent-proof film that you paint on, and you don't have to worry about cleaning it off until you're all done and you use the remover, the specialty remover. So I've spread my ink on, and I'm going to flood and then print directly onto my plastic Mylar. So I want to make sure that it's down on the press table when I do my initial print. Flood again. This water-based ink doesn't dry out on the edges of the screen. So you can see that I've got my print on my Mylar, and it's clear plastic because I want to be able to see my print that has the previous 4 colors underneath, and I'm going to lay down that, or sorry, 3 colors, and I'm going to slide it under the Mylar and make sure that it's exactly lined up by checking each point where the color overlaps, and if I see any kind of double vision, if the colors aren't lining up, then I want to make sure that I take the time to adjust at every point so that it overlays exactly where I want it to. And I don't see any. There we go. I just want to make sure at every point, just by tiny little adjustments. Taking the time to do this will ensure that your print looks very clean and that all of the edges line up. If you had something that wasn't flat like a piece of paper, that had some dimension to it, like a t-shirt or like a piece of plexiglass or wood, you would want to make sure that you built up the Mylar so that it wasn't flush against the press table when you did your initial print. And you'll want to make sure that it's attached to some sort of riser, and the riser is attached to your press table, just so that everything stays locked into place. The more consistent you can be, then the better and cleaner your prints will come out. So I remove the Mylar. Of course, I don't want to print on it again. Pull my print, on the paper that I just registered. And now I have my final color. And I do that with all of my subsequent prints that I had previously printed colors 1 through 3 on. So you'll notice that I also have my Mylar taped onto my press table at the bottom. That is so that I can flip it up when I'm ready to adjust. And then when I'm done adjusting and I'm ready to print, I simply have to flip it down. Because it's printed on the top side, this plastic will drape down, and as I walk up to it, this is the back side, and it won't touch me as I'm printing. But if you tape it anywhere else, you run the risk of laying it down and having it touch like your press table, or not having enough space for your paper to stick out at the top, depending on where you placed it and positioned it on your paper. So just be aware ahead of time, maybe how you're going to be printing, where you're going to be printing these, if you need extra space, what size Mylar you need, if you need a smaller piece or a larger piece, if it needs to cover the whole screen, or if you just need a small section. Make sure ahead of time that you position it properly so that you're not fussing with it with the ink in the screen. So you want to make sure that your image is going to fall completely on the Mylar, whether you print it on the paper that way or not. So that's how I set it up on my press table.